Every video here on 616 Entertainment is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos and podcasts, and more. Pro Wrestling Tees has the merch. As always, thank you for watching. In 2021, there's one mainline WWE video game franchise. The 2K games drop every year like clockwork. Well, almost every year. And despite their most recent catastrophic release, let's be honest, this franchise is pretty damn good. There are corners of the internet that would have you believe that these games are garbage, they're terrible, they're the worst wrestling games ever, but come on. They're just a different style than what we grew up with, you know? You don't have to like it, but to claim they're all trash, it's just unrealistic. What is annoying though, and I'll give you this, is the lack of variety. And I'm not talking about, we used to have WCW, WWF, and ECW games all on the shelves at the same time. I'm talking about the early to mid 2000s, where there were 3 distinct WWE video game franchises exclusive to 3 different consoles. It was a hell of a time. Hey Dan-Dans, welcome to another installment of Triangle X Squared Circle, the wrestling game retrospective series. Last time out we covered 1995's WWF WrestleMania the arcade game, but I swerved you a little bit, and I snuck in some coverage of its sequel, WWF In Your House, as well. Today's episode is advertised as WWE WrestleMania 19 on the Gamecube, but...
Warning, swerve alert. Swerve alert. You're about to be swerved.
I'm swerving you sons of bitch again. How the hell would we talk about WrestleMania 19 and not talk about its predecessor, WWF WrestleMania X8? I hope you're strapped in, because it's time for another doubleheader, Dan-Dans. WWE WrestleMania X8, or WrestleMania 18, was the first World Wrestling Entertainment offering to hit Nintendo's fancy new tiny disc console, the GameCube, in June of 2002. What the hell was the whole X7 and X8 thing about?
I don't know!
For years, the rulers of the wrestling space on the Nintendo side of things were the Aki Corporation. You know these guys. They brought us everything from WCW NWO Revenge to WWF No Mercy. To say they've got a bit of a legacy behind them would be an understatement. But as beloved as Aki were, things didn't really work out for them in the mainstream wrestling scene beyond the November 2000 release of No Mercy. It was after the abysmal launch of WCW Backstage Assault that EA said, you know what? We need the best of the best to right this ship. EA reached an agreement to publish WCW Mayhem 2, which would be developed by Aki. This could have been amazing. We could be talking about this game in the same light that we talk about the other Aki classics, but it was not to be. WCW getting scooped up and shelved by the WWF in March of 2001 caused Aki to call an audible, and what was initially WCW Mayhem 2 would eventually see the light of day as Def Jam Vendetta. You can learn all about this in the Def Jam Vendetta episode from Season 1 of this show. The link is in the description. Why am I telling you all this? Well, because it was a big deal that there was a new WWF game coming to a Nintendo console and Aki weren't behind the wheel. For WrestleMania X8, the keys would be given to Yuke's, the very same developer behind the SmackDown series on the PlayStation. And don't get confused, I see people make this mistake all the time. THQ were a publisher, Yuke's were a developer. Yuke's made the game, THQ put it out. Got it? And while that sounds pretty cool, I mean, the SmackDown games are awesome, what the hell would be the point of doing another series exclusive to a different console just for it to feel exactly the same? Here's where some big decisions were made. THQ didn't want a SmackDown clone. WrestleMania X8 was intended to feel like its own unique beast. And while there was some overlap between team members on SmackDown and WrestleMania, it was not the exact same lineup by any means. As a matter of fact, THQ actually poached several Aki Corporation employees to put directly on the WrestleMania development team in order to ensure it carried its own identity. They went out of their way to make this GameCube debut feel special, and I'll be damned if they didn't accomplish just that. What's interesting about WrestleMania X8 is that the box art says WWE, but all across the inside of the actual game, we've got WWF logos galore. That's because this game was released just a few short months after the World Wildlife Fund took down the World Wrestling Federation in court, and the WWE name change took hold. It was too late to go into the game and change everything, so they just changed the box art. Here's the original and the updated version side by side. The PAL release updated the cover art once again, replacing the recently disenfranchised Stone Cold Steve Austin with The Rock. What a journey simply surrounding the cover art, right? Gameplay-wise, WrestleMania X8 found a sweet spot between being its own game and taking inspiration from the SmackDown titles, which is not a bad thing. The grappling mechanics are admittedly pretty limited, with only 5 front and rear grappling moves per character. Honestly, No Mercy had 20 front grapples per character, and that came out several years prior on a previous generation, so this could have been a little deeper for sure. The roster was awesome, as this was the first WWE release to feature the massive influx of former WCW and ECW talent. We've got debuts here the likes of Booker T, Rob Van Dam, The Hurricane, and more. But how about the fucking NWO? This was the first time Scott Hall had appeared in a WWE game since 1995, the first for Kevin Nash since 1994, and the first for Hulk Hogan since 1993. The band was back together in a big way, and it was awesome to be able to play as the original members of what is arguably the greatest faction in the history of pro wrestling once again. Outside of a super deep exhibition mode complete with gimmick matches like TLC, Steel Cage, and more, there are also several different game modes open to the player right from the start. Path of a Champion allows you to basically run through an arcade ladder, Mortal Kombat style, until you win whichever title you were going after. Battle of the Belts, though, is where things get a little more interesting. If you're a weirdo belt mark like I am, maybe you know what I'm going to talk about here. Look at some of these belts. We've got The Rock's custom Brahma Bull title, which never even made it to TV. We've got Austin's short-lived Smoking Skull belt. But what's this? That's a knockoff of the WCW World title. That's the ECW TV Championship. That's the old IWGP belt. That's the AWA World Championship. This was so cool to me as a belt mark. There are 51 of these things on this list, man, and the deeper you go, the deeper the references go. Super cool. But as you might imagine, there are a few less than stellar and downright strange quirks to this game. Some of the wrestlers' bodies are comically out of scale. This isn't the super exaggerated style of Legends of Wrestling. I cannot explain why Rob Van Dam looks the way he does. There's absolutely no animation for breaking the announce table. It's up 1 second, and the next, it's not. The normal wooden tables are fucking enormous. These things look like they were borrowed from the Last Supper. And what the fuck is with how the tables break in the corner? In real life, you set the thing up and you break through it. It crumbles. In WrestleMania X8, breaking a table in the corner sends the thing careening into the sky like it was spring-loaded. Smash! Hilarious. Quirks aside, when it came down to it, WrestleMania X8 did the damn thing. It reviewed fairly well, it sold fairly well, and it proved to be a great starting point for WWE and THQ's new venture on the Nintendo Gamecube. The foundation had been set for this new franchise, and now it was time for the developers to iterate on their original ideas, improve existing framework, and do the best they could to deliver a top-tier sequel. This is where the advertised portion of this episode begins, Dan Dans. It's time to talk about WWE WrestleMania 19. Man, 2003 was a hell of a time, wasn't it? World Wrestling Entertainment had officially shed the skin of the Attitude Era, ushering in the new generation of stars in a time period that has since been tagged as the Ruthless Aggression Era. Stone Cold Steve Austin had just recently retired from in-ring competition. The Rock's appearances are sporadic at best, as Hollywood is calling his name more and more frequently. Filling those shoes would be no small task, but it had to be done. Fresh blood like Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, and more exploded onto the scene. Faces from another land like Goldberg and Scott Steiner made their mark in the WWE World title picture. Kane lost his mask. Jeff Hardy was released from the company while Matt Hardy thrived as a single star. To call it a period of flux would be an understatement. It was just before fall in 2003 that WWE WrestleMania 19, still exclusive to the Nintendo Gamecube, would hit store shelves. We know because we've covered it that WrestleMania X8 was pretty cool, but how would the sequel fare? Well, the tiny little Gamecube disc is emblazoned with the big gold belt. and I gotta believe that's a good sign. Spoilers, it is indeed a good sign. WrestleMania 19 looks way better than 18 did, and that's saying something, as 18 had a unique style of its own. But side by side, there's no debate. The wrestlers' bodies look so much more detailed, from musculature to skin tone, even shape. To be honest, I knew this game was going to look great before it even shipped. Those first screenshots that came out, I think we were all like, holy shit, right? Across the board, graphically, this game was aces. I mean, they do have Stacy Keibler looking kind of fucked up in the Shop Zone menu. She moves like a creature from a horror movie, and it's a little unsettling. Stacy Keibler is one of the hottest wrestling babes of all time, man. This was a botch job. But aside from Stacy, can we just take a second to appreciate some of the cool little tidbits from this game? How about the justice that was done in the design of the Hell in a Cell cage? This may be the closest to perfect cell design we've ever gotten. The scale of it is dead on. The buckling of the roof's panels before the crash, the hanging chain link after the ceiling gives way, it's fantastic. Not to mention, you can climb the walls of the cell on the inside, which is cool. And you can get weapons from under the ring during a cell match, something that WrestleMania's sister series, SmackDown, did not allow. And if we're putting over match types at the moment, let me show some love to the Royal Rumble. I promise I won't keep bringing up SmackDown, but from the very first release, all the way up to 2003's Here Comes the Pain, their Royal Rumble match was barely, and I mean barely, changed at all. WrestleMania 19 shows up and says, hey, you're not just gonna Irish whip every single guy right over the top as soon as they get in the ring. You gotta toss them over and then beat the ever-living shit out of them and drain their meter before they actually get eliminated. This made Rumble matches longer, more realistic, and overall, more fun. A great improvement. This is the part where when I'm covering practically any other wrestling game that released after 1999, we'd be talking about the season mode. Well, WrestleMania 19 doesn't have a season mode. In its place is Revenge Mode. What the hell is Revenge Mode? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Vince McMahon has had enough of your shit. He's had you beaten down, dragged around, and now you're fired. Security guards literally throw you out the back exit to the building, right at the feet of the awaiting Stephanie McMahon. Hey, why the fuck was Stephanie all dressed up like that to stand in the parking lot of a sports arena at 10 o'clock at night? Well, because she's got big plans. Big plans that are gonna shape the outline of Revenge Mode. So did Stephanie know the fucking player was getting fired that night and that's why she was standing out there? Or has she been standing in the parking lot of every fucking arena for the past however knows long, waiting for somebody to get fired so she could tell her plan to them? Well, the plot of Revenge Mode is, Stephanie McMahon, listen, will you shut the fuck up and let us design the game? Stephanie's got a plan. She wants to take down her dad by ruining WrestleMania. And she's using us to do her bidding. What kind of bidding, you ask? The first mission, yes, mission, there are no wrestling matches, just missions, has us traveling to the work site where the WrestleMania arena is being built. And what are we doing here? Stealing blueprints? Nope. Our goal is to literally kill all of the construction workers who have been employed to get the arena up in time for the show. You can call me dramatic, you can argue with me all you want. We are killing these poor fuckers by throwing them off this ledge. They're not falling 6 feet and twisting their ankle. We're so goddamn high in the air that we don't even see the impact of their bodies exploding on the asphalt below. Those guys are dead. And for what? What is all this violence for? These guys aren't even WWE employees. Vince McMahon's not going to feel this in his pocketbook. These are union guys with families at home. They're just doing their job trying to build this arena that's only going to host one show. Because that's how WWE handles WrestleMania, right? They never rent out existing buildings. They always pay $650 million a year to have their own version of AT&T Stadium built that they use one time and then it's demolished. That's what they always do, right? But whatever. So we killed a bunch of innocent people and got away with it. Now what? Oh, now we're going to a shopping mall to kill some unrelated security guards. Hey man, the win condition says to make them bleed and knock them out. But I've been making sure all of these dudes are drowned in the mall fountain.
Maybe I'm the problem.
This is fucking ridiculous. Look at this! Stone Cold Steve Austin in full underwear-ass ring gear, handing out cans of whoop-ass on mall cops. This looks like a scene from Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie. But there's more to revenge mode than just mass murder in public places. Outside of killing construction workers and mall security, we're also tasked with vandalism in the shape of destroying cars. Killing dock workers by throwing them off a platform in the middle of the ocean. No, that's just more murder. Don't get me started on the platforming involved here. Yes, the platforming. Climbing scaffolding, swinging across, hanging, rotating chains in a parking garage that apparently has an expressway passing through it? I don't know. This whole mode is fucked up beyond belief. In my time with it, I experienced several visual and auditory glitches.
You will be compensated with cash for each objective you complete.
And I'm not kidding. After hitting the button to wrap up the recording of this gameplay, my GameCube stopped working. I needed to capture some more footage from WrestleMania 18, and my console 100% told me to go fuck myself. That's revenge mode, man. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that revenge mode had no upside, though. I don't know about you guys, but my friends and I, we loved to have fatal four-way matches on the harbor stage. Climbing that big-ass chain all the way up to the top, smashing through the floor and falling into the ocean. That shit was fun. It may have been nonsensical and ridiculous, but this is wrestling. It's all nonsensical and ridiculous. What isn't nonsensical and ridiculous is the return of the strong grapple. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking that Aki formula and bringing it into other wrestling games. The gameplay is way slower than WrestleMania 18 though, I must say. Slower than the SmackDown games as well. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't really mind the more methodical pace. This is the team trying to find that balance between arcade and realism, you know? What I do have issues with, though, is the fact that fairly often, you're going to reach out and grapple at no one simply because you're not perfectly lined up with your opponent. That's annoying, as is the mechanic that allows any single movement to interrupt a grapple move. If you're standing near someone doing a suplex, you're taking a bump, even though you had nothing to do with the move. You're just in the way. Can we not do that? It's beyond annoying. And none, I mean none, of the GameCube WWE games fix this. Am I alone in hating this? Let me know in the comments. I want to talk about some of the weird shit in this game that sticks out in my mind like a sore thumb. I can and have gone years without playing this game, and these memories never left me. First of all, the referee, which, side note, that might look like Earl Hebner, but it's not. Because if WWE admitted it was, they'd have to pay him. And WWE does not like to treat their employees that well. Just ask 30-year ref Mike Chioda, who WWE fired in the middle of a pandemic as a cost-cutting measure.
Like, you're tied down at WWE. You couldn't get royalties off of video games because they wouldn't let us in the video games.
Yeah.
They let me in for a little while. And then once I was talking about, okay, where's my royalties? They took me right out of the game.
This referee will follow you to the ends of the earth. Come hell or high water, that pinfall is getting counted. He'll even scale the fucking Hell in a Cell cage. He'll bump through the ceiling with you. And guess what he does then? He counts to 3 like a fucking professional. Bless you, nameless, royalty-free referee. Attention to detail is something that I feel should always be commended. And let me tell you, I was pleasantly surprised when I put together a Dudley Boyz vs. Booker T and Goldust tag match, only to see Booker and Goldust come out together in all their odd couple glory. Amazing. And in a world of knockoff music for the NWO, Randy Orton, which this one is super odd, seeing as though Motorhead made the Evolution song specifically for WWE, Booker T and others, it's crazy that they licensed Voodoo Child from Jimi Hendrix for Hulk Hogan. What the hell is that about? You can pay the Hendrix estate but not dip into your own catalog for the Evolution song? Someone do some digging on this for me. I need answers. You know what else I need? I need to tell you about the King of the Ring mode. Holy hell. You can go through and set the bracket perfectly how you like it if you want to, but my god is it entertaining to sit back and just roll with the AI picks. Round 1, we've got Goldberg versus Dawn Marie. You better believe Dawn Marie's going over clean. What are you, nuts? Next up, The Rock versus Victoria. And we've got a new People's Champ. Get a group of friends around and place bets on one of these things. It's incredible. What really chaps my ass though is that King of the Ring mode is how you determine champions. You start by choosing the title that's going to be on the line. But when it's over, there's no belt! The champ doesn't wear it to the ring, the winner doesn't celebrate with it. Ugh, you know this is a pet peeve of mine. As are disappearing tables. WrestleMania X8's announced tables didn't disappear after you broke them. And no answer you can possibly give me as to why they vanish in 19 will suffice. I hate this. But let's counteract that hate with a little bit of love. This roster is a fucking chef's kiss. I adore the 2003 WWE lineup, man. So many guys and girls that I have great memories with are here. I do wonder, though, why is Goldberg stuck all the way down there at the very bottom? Look at the top row. It's all main eventers. So why isn't Goldberg up there? I've tried to dissect this layout and make sense of it, and there are some connections. For instance, why are Austin and Rock at the beginning? Why isn't this in alphabetical order? Well, I don't have an answer for why it's not in alphabetical order, but Rock and Austin did face each other at WrestleMania 19. Jericho and Shawn Michaels also went one-on-one at WrestleMania 19, so we may have a pattern here. Angle and Lesnar, another one. But Triple H... He faced Booker T, and they're not side by side. Hogan's all by himself as well when he should be next to Vince McMahon. RVD and Kane are a tag team, so that makes sense. As were the Dudleys. Okay, we're back. Hurricane and Goldust throw it off, though. I mean, Edge and Ray were teammates. Big Show's alone. Chris Benoit killed his family. I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought maybe we could decipher this thing, but there just seems to be no real rhyme or reason. WrestleMania 19 is a hell of a game. Visually, it's big time. In the gameplay department, it's no slouch. You're bound to stay entertained by the sheer variety of gimmick matches and revenge mode, man. What a strange trip into the mind of someone, I don't know. But with all the positives I've pointed out in this retrospective, as well as the strange little quirks, how did WrestleMania do with critics? How well did it perform sales-wise? The event that the game takes its name from is regarded as one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time, so this adaptation better be good, right? Well, luckily for Ukes and THQ, it was good. The review scores were favorable across the board. It was even nominated for Best Fighting Game at the 2003 Spike Video Game Awards, an award that was won by SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, so either way, Ukes and THQ were living large. And while WrestleMania 19's success at retail continued to pave the way for future WWE branded titles exclusive to Nintendo's GameCube, subsequent releases would stray from the WrestleMania name in favor of Day of Reckoning. But that's another story for another time. You know those certain friends you have growing up where you think, man, 20 years from now, we're still gonna be super close. I had a friend like that. I was a PlayStation guy, he was a Nintendo guy. We were both huge wrestling fans back in the day, and he happened to have a GameCube. WrestleMania 19 is the last game that my friend Bobby Morrissey and I bonded over. Not everything lasts. In 2004, I moved away from the neighborhood I grew up in, and we lost touch. I mean, we lost touch shockingly fast. It was pretty disappointing. But even though we didn't remain super close and we haven't spoken in years, that doesn't mean that those memories I have were for nothing. I'll always think of WrestleMania 19, I'll think of my buddy Bobby Morrissey, and I'm going to be transported back in time, sitting on his floor during a sleepover with a GameCube controller in my hands. And that is awesome. Dans, this was my Triangle X Squared Circle retrospective on WWE WrestleMania 19. And WWF WrestleMania 18 as well, because I kind of snuck that shit in there. The Nintendo Gamecube, home to classics like Super Mario Sunshine, Resident Evil 4, The Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and more. Sure, the console didn't sell well. Who cares? Nintendo pulled the nose up, and they're doing okay today, don't you think? The GameCube's path crossed with the world of professional wrestling on multiple occasions. Last season on this show, I covered both WWF WrestleMania X8 and WrestleMania 19 in a double-header episode for the ages. Remember the murderous rampage against the construction workers and police officers in revenge mode? Man, I still don't know what the hell that was supposed to be. Today, we turn the page and begin the next chapter of WWE's tag team partnership with the Nintendo Gamecube. This is WWE Day of Reckoning. How does this title compare to the previous entries in the GameCube's wrestling catalog? Are we about to discover the next legendary main eventer? Or is this an overrated, overappreciated, mid-carder at best, thrust into the spotlight before it was ready? There's only one way to find out. Welcome to Triangle X Squared Circle, the wrestling game retrospective series. 2003's WWE WrestleMania 19 may have featured one of the craziest and most off-the-wall season modes in wrestling game history, but from its graphical style to its gameplay, from its unbelievable roster to its myriad match types, WrestleMania 19 wasn't just a step up from its predecessor. It was a massive leap. When a sequel hit store shelves just 11 months later, fans had to wonder if this third game in the series could replicate such a jump in quality. And yes, this is the third WWE game to hit Nintendo's boxy little purple console. We went from WrestleMania X8 to WrestleMania 19 to Day of Reckoning. I wonder where they dropped the WrestleMania titling. Maybe because WrestleMania season is in the spring, and these games don't typically drop until the fall? Maybe because some of the biggest names on the WrestleMania 20 card had left the company far before this new game released and couldn't be featured in any of the marketing? I don't know. If you line them up, WrestleMania 18 and 19 are GameCube games. WrestleMania 21 was an Xbox game that I covered recently. It's a horrific pile of garbage. And there is no WrestleMania 20 game at all. What an inconsistent, annoying approach to titling. But you don't care about all this, do you? You don't need to be told that Day of Reckoning is another Yuke's-developed, THQ-published WWE game, right? We've been through this. So let's skip it. Let's dive right into the heart of the matter, and let me drop a bombshell right here in the early going. Are you ready? Here it goes. WWE Day of Reckoning is to the GameCube series what SmackDown Just Bring It was to the PlayStation series. I know, that's a bold claim, but I can back it up. SmackDown Just Bring It was the first game in the franchise to release on the PlayStation 2. It was the third entry in the series on a brand new generation of consoles. Expectations were through the roof. And then the gameplay was practically the same. There weren't really any new match types to speak of, and the story mode, while innovative in its first-person perspective, was extremely short, disappointing millions of fans who were coming from SmackDown 2's seemingly endless season mode. Day of Reckoning is the third game in its franchise. The gameplay is practically a carbon copy of WrestleMania 19's. The number of new match types adds up to a whopping 1, with the spotlight shining on bra and panties. No elimination chamber, no buried alive match, no. Bra and panties. And I don't want to hear that I'm expecting too much when it comes to a buried alive match, as the Survivor Series arena here in the game features the grave right next to the stage. It's right there, man. We've got a story mode that will bore you to tears, more on that later, and I'm just gonna drop this right here as well. Day of Reckoning's roster sucks. WrestleMania 19's pool of 45 playable wrestlers wasn't massive, but it was absolutely stacked with legendary names. Day of Reckoning's playable character count tops out at just 40 wrestlers. We've lost Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, the Dudley Boys, Hurricane, Goldust, Lita, Scott Steiner, and more. In their places are Garrison Cade, the Basham Brothers, Mark Jindrak, and Val Venus. I'm sorry, I mean no disrespect, but this shit sucks. I do mean disrespect to Val Venus. Fuck Val Venus, what a loser. But everybody else, you're cool. It's just that the roster overall is a downgrade. I mean, for God's sake, this is late 2004. The WWE champion on television is John Bradshaw Layfield. Guess who isn't in this fucking game? Jesus Christ. Do you see what I mean? I recognize and even respect the fact that Day of Reckoning's gameplay is great. It's just the WrestleMania 19 gameplay, after all, a game I really enjoy, but everything surrounding the gameplay has either not evolved or, in some cases, has gotten worse. Now, I have more to complain about, so if you're a huge Day of Reckoning fan and you're really upset, you're taking this personally for some reason, I need you to understand that I am not saying this game is bad. I'm not saying that at all. I will reiterate, the gameplay is great, and that's what's most important, above all else. But with a retrospective like this, we are looking back at the entire picture. We're comparing the game to what came before it, and eventually, we'll get into what came after. In many areas, Day of Reckoning falls short. That's just the reality of the situation. I mentioned the story mode earlier, and here's where I'll spend a little more time on it. If you're hoping this is a big turnaround, it isn't. The story mode sucks. We start off by creating our very own WWE superstar and selecting a brand we'd like to compete for. As a rookie, a noob, a jabroni, we're brand new. We don't get to just step into the spotlight and main event SummerSlam. No, we're gonna hit the house show circuit, competing against generic nobodies. Every match comes with a task like hit your finishing move, or reverse 2 grapple attempts. After spending far too long on the live events, we get a crack at Sunday Night Heat. Time to up the ante, right? Time to gain some freedom. Nope. Even after the game tells you to your face that it's aware that what you're doing is boring, it tells you to keep doing it. Work Matt Hardy's leg. Hit your finishing move twice. This is ungodly boring. There's zero substance here. Noted sex pest Vince McMahon telling me he doesn't care about anything I've done anywhere else, none of that matters, and that here, I'm a nobody. I was like, oh, they should have just called this WCW Star Signs with the WWF Simulator. That's what it feels like. Eventually, depending on which brand you chose at the beginning, you'll either get involved with Evolution or the Ministry. It's worth noting that there are no vocal performances in the story mode at all. Dialogue is delivered through text 100% of the time, which I find unacceptable, seeing as though WrestleMania 19 featured plenty of voice acting. When it comes to commentary during matches, there is no commentary during matches. The licensed soundtrack is great at first. I mean, who doesn't pop when they hear Breaking Benjamin or Zebrahead in a WWE game? But it gets old really fast. There are only 10 songs on the entire soundtrack, and the song changes between every loading screen. There are tons of loading screens here, so the songs are constantly starting over from the beginning. The songs play over the menus, they play during story mode cutscenes, they play during your matches. Eventually, you can't fucking escape it. I had to go into the options and turn the music off. I'm not kidding. It was driving me crazy. Positives. Let's talk about what's good, outside of the game playing really well. Graphically, Day of Reckoning excels. The lighting effects have been overhauled with deeper shadows and richer colors. I personally prefer the look of WrestleMania 19 with its brighter, exaggerated style, but Day of Reckoning definitely looks more realistic, if that's your thing. There's a negative effect that pops up when a devastating finisher is landed, and I really enjoy the fact that this happens very rarely. It makes it feel special when it does occur. Create a Wrestler mode here is super deep, without a doubt the best CAW mode on the GameCube thus far. That's a plus. And as I've bragged about in the past, the GameCube has always been the home of a fantastic Hell in a Cell match. If you don't think this pedigree I landed through the roof of the cage is a 10 out of 10, lose my number. I'd go as far as to say that all of the arenas look excellent, from the big and flashy WrestleMania 20 stage, all the way to the basic and bland house show set. I appreciate the variety. These arenas, all of them other than Raw and SmackDown, need to be purchased with cash earned from the story mode, so yeah, you have to play the story mode to enjoy these arenas, unfortunately. I think the single best thing to come from Day of Reckoning's existence, honestly, Might be the John Cena commercial.
There's a new game, and it's tearing the streets up. Lace your boots if you think you can keep up. Ron panties match with a diva strip down. Build your character so strong, opponents skip town. But y'all rookies got a lot to learn. You ain't guaranteed fame, what you get you earn. It's a school of hard knocks where you pay your dues. Toughness is measured in your black and blues. Starting small time gyms where your chances are slim. Or rocking a leather belt laced with gold trim. The world title, you got the guts to take it. It's a cutthroat game, very few make it. You in the weak games, man, this ain't you. This is real life passion, THQ. A Legends roster stacked with Hall of Famers. Tough enough to beat even polished gamers. A bunch of superstars, SmackDown and Raw. They ready to fight, we gon' crack down your jaw. I'm your number one choice, man, your boy is sick. With moves so hot, I light up your joystick. Everybody else is lame, dude. They can't see me, I be running the GameCube. Day of Reckoning's coming, remember I told you. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Rated T for teen.
There you go. See, I'm putting Day of Reckoning over. It's a fine game. I just think it has a little higher of a reputation than it really deserves. Can anyone tell me why the character select screen is not in alphabetical order? What was so bad about that simple convenience that they needed to remove? Look at some of these faces. Are you trying to tell me that this resembles Edge in any way? Shawn Michaels looks like he was poorly sculpted from clay. What is with... You know what? I'm sorry. I'm done. It's a good game. It's fun to play. The different sets and arenas look excellent. We've got the tried and true steel cage, Hell in a Cell, tables, ladders, and chairs, Royal Rumble, and more. The issue is that there's almost literally nothing new to do here. At all. As a singular video game, it's good. But as a sequel, as the third installment in a franchise, I don't think you can look at this as anything but a disappointment. It's a graphical update, it's a roster refresh, and a terrible one at that. I just feel that for the first time ever on the GameCube, WWE had found its Madden equivalent. There's barely anything going on here differentiating this from the prior installment, and that kinda sucks. You know what didn't suck? The reviews. Critics enjoyed this game, lauding the graphical leap but burying its selection of wrestlers. Hey, where have I heard that before? The game sold about 450,000 copies, a far cry from the 2.8 million that its PlayStation 2 brother moved, but like I said at the top, the GameCube itself didn't sell well at all, so the install base was much smaller to begin with. 1 year later, another sequel would arrive. WWE Day of Reckoning 2 would be the final WWE title released for the Nintendo GameCube. Would the curtains close to a standing ovation, or would WWE be booed out of the Nintendo arena? We'll talk all about it next time. In 2005, the Nintendo GameCube was not only an official disappointment from a sales perspective, but it was on its last legs as well. Rumblings of the mysterious revolution were getting louder and louder, while the PlayStation 2's numbers soared to record heights and the Xbox 360 was nearing its launch. This boxy little console was on its farewell tour, and with World Wrestling Entertainment by their side, Nintendo were looking to close out their GameCube in-ring career on a high note. With an impressive trilogy of games already in their wake and a fourth on the horizon, the trio of Ukes, THQ, and WWE knew one thing. This final entry had to be a banger. On today's episode of Triangle X Squared Circle, the wrestling game retrospective series, we dive deep into WWE Day of Reckoning 2. Let me open up by saying that the comment section was extremely reasonable on the previous episode. In taking an honest, fair, and balanced look at the first Day of Reckoning game, I found its roster to be awful, its soundtrack to be shallow and repetitive. The story mode could be described using the exact same words, but the gameplay overall was great. It's a good game, no doubt about it, but it's not above some well-deserved criticism. Many of you agreed with me, stating that the prior title, WrestleMania 19, as well as today's topic, Day of Reckoning 2, are far superior. There were those of you who disagreed with me, and that's totally fine. We all have our own taste and opinions. Those of you who took my critiques of the game personally for some odd reason, I don't know what to tell you. That's something you need to figure out on your own time. I open with these statements because I don't want to bury the lead. I want to make my overall opinion of Day of Reckoning 2 very clear from the very start. This game is awesome. Holy hell, Day of Reckoning 2 deserves every single bit of the praise it has garnered over the years. It's a fair question to wonder what the big differences are from the previous entry in the series, so I don't mind doing a quick comparison. Let's rapid fire. How about it? Let's flash back. The licensed soundtrack is great at first, but it gets old really fast. There are only 10 songs on the entire soundtrack, and the song changes between every loading screen. There are tons of loading screens here, so the songs are constantly starting over from the beginning. I had to go into the options and turn the music off. I'm not kidding. It was driving me crazy. Here in the sequel, the licensed, recognizable music has been removed almost completely. Hard-rocking, heavy-hitting bangers rage on in the background, which honestly fits the feel much better, and the repetition isn't as obvious. Day of Reckoning 1's story mode was slow and mind-numbingly boring, trudging through house shows before graduating to Sunday Night Heat, where we're given the most menial tasks to carry out during matches. Day of Reckoning 2's story mode, while fairly short in length, is much more interesting, far more exciting, and just a lot more fun to play. More on this later. And the last comparison I'll hit you with here at the top is the roster. Day of Reckoning 2's roster has beefed back up to 45 wrestlers with Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Chris Masters, Heidenreich, JBL, Christy Hemme, Tori Wilson, Kenzo Suzuki, Rene Dupree, The Hurricane, Gene Snitsky, and more joining the team. Do you see what I mean? Even from a surface level glance, we can see how much of an improvement this fourth WWE Gamecube offering is, which certainly doesn't piss me off. I said we'd check back in on the story mode later, and, well, the time is now. The marketing materials would have you believe that this story mode picks up where the previous title left off, but that's not really accurate. A considerable amount of time has passed, for one, and secondly, we can't import our created wrestler from the original Day of Reckoning. How am I continuing where I left off if I have to make a new guy? And the world title that I worked so hard to win at WrestleMania, I just lost it at some point, and I'm kind of back in the mix again. It's a little disingenuous, but luckily, that's my greatest complaint with the story mode. Outside of that, this is a great time. We're not relegated to boring, pointless, borderline tutorial-esque matches for hours at a time. Instead, we're opening in a tournament for the World Heavyweight Championship amongst the biggest stars on the Raw roster. We eventually head to the main event of WrestleMania against Triple H, the world title on the line, and it turns out somebody stole the championship belt out of Eric Bischoff's private office. Hilariously, the main event of WrestleMania is canceled, and Raw is without a champion. From here, there are a number of different angles for us to get involved in. Going after the Intercontinental Championship is an option, or do we take it to Edge for disrespecting our girlfriend, Stacy Keibler? Look, nobody disrespects Stacy Keibler. I'll pass up gold any day for Stacy Keibler. You kidding me? I was going to do a whole bit here, but I'll just cut it short before it gets out of hand. I'm just saying. Stacy Keibler? Jesus Christ. I won't spoil the entire story mode for you, but the branching paths continue, the stakes get higher, and overall, it's a lot of fun. Plus, this is how we unlock new arenas and new wrestlers, so the rewards stack up nicely as well. Okay, if I have one more tiny criticism, practically every angle follows the same structure. Singles match, tag team match, pay-per-view blow-off. This gets old. It's annoying, but it's not a deal breaker by any means. You know what's awesome? The blood. Oh man, it comes in stages, so the first level is gnarly, but we're just getting started. Full-on gushing leads to pools of blood collecting on the canvas, which just looks absolutely brutal. I'm also a fan of the new submission system, where it's up to the player to decide what exactly you're trying to accomplish with a hold. You better not get predictable though, because if your opponent can correctly match your input, they'll escape immediately. The graphics from the top on down have vastly improved once again. You thought Day of Reckoning looked more realistic than WrestleMania 19? Day of Reckoning 2 looks way better than Day of Reckoning 1. It's kind of crazy. Look at the character models. Rob Van Dam looks awesome. A far cry from whoever the hell this was dressed up as Edge in the last game. The lighting's a little strange. I don't know why it's so dark in here. This is certainly not what the WWE television broadcast looked and felt like, but whatever. What really stands out to me are the camera angles. This game is incredibly cinematic in its cuts, but what's even more impressive are the options for the hard cam. Here's our standard viewpoint, just like on TV. If you want to get old school and have the entrance stage play as your backdrop, switch over to it. Pretty cool, right? But how about this? The corner cam. I don't think I've ever seen this angle in another game. And you might feel like it looks a little disorienting. I can imagine you might be skeptical about how this messes with the controls, but it really doesn't at all. You'll still whip your opponent into the ropes or the corner that you meant to every time. I don't know how it feels so good, but it does. I love the variety. I also love that we finally have a ring announcer. Tony Chimmel sounds excellent.
Weighing 252 pounds, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
There's still no commentary during matches, and the story mode dialogue is still delivered entirely through text, which Ukes claimed was due to the GameCube's limitations, but I don't buy that at all. Games like Resident Evil 4 had no problem with tons of dialogue fitting on a disc, so I don't want to hear it. And you know what? Good. Perfect timing. Let's use this to springboard into my criticisms of Day of Reckoning 2, because despite all the praise I've heaped on it thus far, that's not to say it's perfect. The stamina system. Some of you just went, here we go! Yeah, the stamina system sucks. I'm not saying that this can't be implemented well. I mean, look over at the PlayStation 2. The SmackDown vs. Raw series introduced a stamina system where holding the select button down would rapidly replenish your energy, allowing you to jump back into the action quickly. The reason Day of Reckoning 2's stamina system is a major pain in the ass is because there is no replenishing button. Here, we literally just have to stand still and wait. We wait and wait and wait. Do not get busted open by your opponent either, as losing blood makes your stamina come back so much slower. Jesus, this sucks. Speaking of the SVR series over on the PS2, let's get into match types. It's late 2005 at this point. The SmackDown vs. Raw games have just introduced parking lot brawls, fulfill your fantasy, the buried alive match, general manager mode. The steel cage match has been reworked completely, but none of that is here on the GameCube. 4 games into this series, and the selection of new match types hasn't grown almost at all. And the steel cage, holy jeez. Those of you who have played through this story mode remember the fatal 4-way cage match at SummerSlam all too well. This match is infamous for ruining many players' experiences, as if you haven't allocated enough attribute points into your speed column, you are screwed. Seriously, you will not be able to win this match, and you'll have to start over from the beginning. That sucks. Why is it that after we score a pinfall to win a match, we lift the opponent's head off the mat as if we're breaking the pinfall? Why? Why does this happen? Very annoying. Paul London rushes to the ring so quickly that Tony Chimmel can't even finish his introduction.
Match. The only way to win this match is to climb the ladder and retrieve the belt. Introducing first from Austin, Texas, weighing 195.
Why does Paul London's theme song sound exactly like the 616 version of the hymn track Endless Dark? And what the hell is going on with William Regal's theme song? As you can see, the issues I have with this game are pretty minor. They pale in comparison to the prior outing, and that's a good thing. This is a good sequel. This is what a sequel is supposed to be. Plus, this game has Fifi coming out with Rene Dupree. What, are you kidding me? Shout out to Fifi. That's bonus points right there. My personal stories and recollections are a huge piece of what sets my retrospectives apart from anybody else's. You could make a YouTube video about Day of Reckoning. You know, anybody could do it if they wanted to. That's why I share my memories with you guys. I like to pull those moments from the past and kind of, I don't know, stitch them into the fabric of the present, in a way. I haven't been sharing as many personal stories over these last 2 episodes because I didn't own a GameCube while these titles were releasing. I wish I did. There are a great number of GameCube bangers that I just have to believe are bangers because I've never played them for myself. Listen, I found Wario World at a local shop the other day and I was so excited. I wanted to play this game forever. And then I saw the $100 price tag and I put that shit right back down. I don't think so. And yes, I looked it up. $100 is not unreasonable for what that's going for in the secondhand market these days. So it wasn't the store's fault. The GameCube, at this point in time, has become prohibitively expensive to engage with, which kinda sucks. If you already own the system, I would like to report that every single WWE game is still reasonably priced on the secondhand market, so if you want to check these out, by all means, go for it. But the glory days of the GameCube, they've come and gone. They came and went almost 20 years ago, as a matter of fact. The Nintendo Revolution, later officially titled the Nintendo Wii, would release just about 1 year after Day of Reckoning 2 hit the GameCube in November of 2006. WWE would not release a single exclusive video game on this motion control based console, bringing the tight-knit tag team of Nintendo and World Wrestling Entertainment to an end. At least on the exclusive front, you know what I mean, right? So did the curtains close on the GameCube's in-ring career with confetti falling from the ceiling to raucous applause, or to an empty arena sitting on their hands? Well, I'm happy to report that WWE Day of Reckoning 2, once again, reviewed very well. The improvements made over the prior title did not fall on deaf ears, with the story mode earning high compliments across the board. Sales-wise, this final installment didn't sell all that well, moving about 350,000 copies, down considerably from the first Day of Reckoning, but who cares? It's in the past. The legacy that began with WWF WrestleMania, the legacy that carried us over to No Mercy, ends here with Day of Reckoning 2. What a run, Dan Dans. The end of an era.